The Apache. The Apache, North American Indians who, under such leaders as Cochise, Mangus Coloradus, Geronimo, and Victorio, figured largely in the history of the Southwest during the latter half of the 19th century. Their name is probably derived from a Spanish transliteration of Apache, the term for enemy in Zuni. Before Spanish colonization, Apache domain extended over what are now, in the United States, east central and southeastern Arizona, southeastern Colorado, southwestern and eastern New Mexico, and western Texas, and in Mexico, northern Chihuahua and Sonora states. However, the ancestral Apache probably did not reach the Southwest until at least 1100 CE. They apparently migrated to the area from the far north, for the Apachean languages are clearly a subgroup of the Athabascan language family, with the exception of the Navajo. All other Athabascan-speaking tribes were originally located in what is now Western Canada. Although the Apache eventually chose to adopt a nomadic way of life that relied heavily on horse transport, semi-sedentary Plains Apache farmers were living along the Dismal River, in what is now Kansas, as recently as 1700. When the horse and gun trades converged in the Central Plains about 1750, guerrilla-style raiding by previously nomadic groups such as the Comanche greatly increased. The remaining Plains Apache were severely pressured and retreated to the south and west. Culturally, the Apache are divided into Eastern Apache, which include the Mescalero, Jicarilla, Chiricahua, Lipan, and Kiowa Apache, and Western Apache, which include the Sibicu, Membrano, Coyotero, and Northern and Southern Tonto or Mogollon Apache. With the exception of the Kiowa Apache, who joined the Kiowa tribal circle, adopting Kiowa customs and allegiance, the Apache traditionally functioned without a centralized tribal organization. Instead, the band, an autonomous small group within a given locality, was the primary political unit, as well as the primary raiding unit. The strongest headman of a band was recognized as an informal chief, and several bands might be united under one leader. Chieftainship was thus an earned privilege rather than a hereditary one. Once the Apache had moved to the southwest, they developed a flexible subsistence economy that included hunting and gathering wild foods, farming, and obtaining food and other items from Pueblo villages via trade, livestock hunts, and raiding. The proportion of each activity varied greatly from tribe to tribe. The Jicarilla farmed fairly extensively, growing corn, maize, and other vegetables, and also hunted bison extensively. The Lipan of Texas, who were probably originally a band of Jicarilla, had largely given up farming for a more mobile lifestyle. The Mescalero were influenced by the Plains tribes' corn and bison-based economies, but their chief food staple was the mescal plant. The Chiricahua were perhaps the most nomadic and aggressive of the Apache west of the Rio Grande, raiding into northern Mexico, Arizona, and New Mexico from their strongholds in the Dragoon Mountains. The western Apache appear to have been more settled than their eastern relatives. Although their economy emphasized farming, they did raid fully sedentary tribes frequently. One of the western Apache tribes, the Navajo, traded extensively with the Pueblo tribes and was heavily influenced by these firmly agriculturist cultures. Although they were among the fiercest groups on the colonial frontiers of Mexico and the United States, and perhaps because of their confidence in their own military prowess, the Apache initially attempted to be friends of the Spanish, Mexicans, and Americans. As early as the 17th century, however, Apache bands were raiding Spanish missions. The Spanish failure to protect missionized Pueblo villages from Apache raids during a 5-year drought in the late 17th century may have helped to instigate the Pueblo Rebellion of 1680. During the Spanish retaliation immediately following the revolt, many Pueblo individuals took shelter with the Navajo. In 1858, a meeting at Apache Pass in the Dragoon Mountains between the Americans and the Chiricahua Apache resulted in a peace that lasted until 1861, when Cochise went on the warpath. This marked the beginning of 25 years of confrontation between United States military forces and the native peoples of the Southwest. The causes of the conflict included the Apache disinclination toward reservation life and incursions onto Apache lands that were related to the development of gold, silver, and coal mining operations in the region. The latter often took place with the consent of corrupt Office of Indian Affairs staff. Despite their adept use of swift horses and their knowledge of the terrain, the Apache were eventually outmatched by the superior arms of American troops. The Navajo surrendered in 1865 and agreed to settle on a reservation in New Mexico. Other Apache groups ostensibly followed suit in 1871 to 1873, but large numbers of warriors refused to yield their nomadic ways and accept permanent confinement. Thus, intermittent raids continued to be led by such Apache leaders as Geronimo and Victorio, evoking federal action once more. The last of the Apache Wars ended in 1886 with the surrender of Geronimo and his few remaining followers. The Chiricahua tribe was evacuated from the West and held as prisoners of war successively in Florida, in Alabama, and at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, for a total of 27 years. In 1913, the members of the tribe were given the choice of taking allotments of land in Oklahoma or living in New Mexico on the Mescalero Reservation. Approximately one-third chose the former and two-thirds the latter. Apache descendants totaled some 100,000 individuals in the early 21st century. For more about indigenous people around the world, please visit to our channel. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe.